Hello and welcome to LinkedIn Water Cooler Talk Live. Today I'm joined with Donnie Boivin. Donnie is here to give us all the details on sales, business, finding your why, scaling, and achieving all of the dreams that you've wanted to change your life and make your business grow for the better. I am so excited to bring him on the show today. He is somebody that I recently met and inspired me, and I think he will inspire you. So if you are all ready to hear from Donnie, let's give him a virtual round of applause as he joins us by the water cooler. Welcome, Donnie.
Hey, girl, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I love it that I'm not the only person in the world that has technical difficulties, so it's been fun backstage watching you get everything figured out. But I love hanging out with you, love. You're always a fun time.
I appreciate it, Donnie. Yes, this week I've been overcoming the flu, and I feel like you get flu brain after, and all the bits and bobs that you usually do don't make quite sense anymore. But we're
Right?
getting there. But something I always ask everybody that hops on the show to really take a moment and pause is what you are grateful for. So, what are you grateful for today,
Ooh, that's
Donnie?
easy. Mine's my wife always,
Oh,
literally she's stuck beside me, through thick and thin, and I put her through hell a couple of times, especially building a business,
yes.
and all the things that you go through. And she described me one time being married to an entrepreneur is like riding in shotgun or passenger seat of a car that's going 100 miles down the road. There's no seat belts and there's no steering wheel. You just try and hold on.
Oh my
So
gosh, that feels very accurate. It's like a ride that you hopped on that you weren't planning to, and then you're like, hope safety is on. Here,
please have airbags, right?
have airbags and a sense of humor, because if you don't, then it's a really tough road out there to start a business. And something I was really reflecting on, I think our conversation is so timely, is economic state that we're in as a country in the US. People are afraid. There's been a lot of layoffs lately. There's been talk of recession. I'm not an economist by any means, but there might have been there might be people that are listening that have had the inkling that they want to start their business, they want to grow, they want to scale, but maybe it's not the right time. Maybe because of all of this, they shouldn't do it, or these are the thoughts or feelings that they're having. So I'm happy to bring you on for that reason, to see if we can dispel those myths, to see if it's still something we can do. But prior to getting into that, Donnie, I think something that I love on the show is bringing people on, and especially those on LinkedIn that have like a great following, or they're active, or they have a podcast and they're successful in their business, because from the outside looking in, from what you're doing, people might just assume, well, he's always been this way. He's always had this success and it's always been easy or whatever. But your story is actually phenomenally interesting to me. Like, how did someone like you go from like a farmer to not knowing what you want to do, to now growing business, events, podcasts, and all that? Like, give us a little glimpse into that journey for you.
For sure. Well, as you said, I grew up as a blue collar kid,
Yeah.
and the blue collar, you're raised in a world of you go get a job, you work for other people, you retire, and that's your life.
Right.
So I didn't even know I could be an entrepreneur until I was 40, and I really came about it through a unique set of circumstances. So when I turned 40, I started listening to more guys like Gary Vee and Tim Ferriss, and you heard guys like Joe Rogan and all them, and
Yeah.
Jen Sincero, and they were all talking about this idea of being an entrepreneur and anybody could do it. And it was fascinating to me, but I was working a really, really good career. I mean, I had a great job, was making great money. My wife and I had built our dream farm, built a second house on the property for my mother-in-law. And, we were living a good life. But, as you're going through things, that idea of there's something else out there, right? That you may need to
Mm.
try something. So during a fateful dinner with a conversation between me and my then business partner, I decided that I was going to jump out on my own and launch a business. And
Right.
my first year in business, I was under an international non-compete, and I couldn't talk about the only thing I knew. I'd been a 20-year straight commission sales guy, and I couldn't talk about sales.
Yeah.
So my first year was really, really, really rough. And 6 months into running my business, I walked out the back door of my farm, and my wife's Jeep was missing. And I called the police, and I said, I think somebody stole our Jeep. And they said, no, sir, it's been repossessed. And I realized I was fixing to have to go back in the house and tell my wife the rest of the story, which was, our mortgage was 3 months behind,
Yeah.
and we were about to lose the entire farm. So she went and cashed in her 401k to save the farm and get her Jeep back. And I had to figure out how to build a business. So from that moment, found podcasting. Podcasting taught me a lot about business. My show took off, became recognized as one of the top shows in the world. Non-compete came up, and man, let me tell you, it was a series of accidents, lots of screw ups, a lot to get punched in the face to get to here. But now I run 3 companies, still have one of the top podcasts, 5 best-selling books, and a partridge in a pear tree.
And
So,
a partridge in a pear tree. Yes. I
yeah,
mean, but here's the thing, between all of those instances, the many accidents that formed together to get you where you are today, you had to have had discipline. You had to have had something that pushed you forward, because it's hard to get back up. How do you brush yourself off and believe in yourself and keep going?
for sure. Well, one, I had a massive vision of where I want to go. I don't believe in goal setting. That's not my world, but I know what I wanted to do. And once well, 2 things kind of lit me up.
Mhm.
One, I was never going back to corporate America.
Yes.
Once I tasted freedom, there was no way I could go back. So that was a driver. But two, I had a massive vision of what I wanted to accomplish. And once I started realizing that there was freedom in building a business, I wanted to help as many other people do the same thing. So I had to figure out how to build a business so I could teach others to do it. I mean, I couldn't just say, "Hey, let me show you how to build a business," and not have a successful business.
I feel you on that. It's like we got to practice what we preach, right? We
For
can't
sure.
show up here acting like a fool and not mean what we're saying. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. So the why behind the business became I want to teach others how to do this, but a why, that's a selfish thing for me. Yeah, others may benefit for it, but a why is traditionally selfish. What I want people to understand is your why is cool, but your reason's even better. And so for me, my wife grew up in a very impoverished household. Her mom didn't work a whole lot, but her dad drove a garbage truck. So she didn't have I mean, she had a good life, just not a life of wealth growing up.
Right.
And I, decided that by God, I'm going to give her the best life she ever has and the best life she deserved for, putting up with me for so many years. So really, my reason for doing all this is so I can give her the life. And in doing that, it's those things when I get up and do 4 a.m. walks every morning on the farm. And there's those mornings where I don't want to get out of bed. I'm like, nope, get up. You can't give her the life if you keep your butt sitting here. So I'll get up and get moving. And if I don't feel like doing the reach outs or the cold calls or anything, it's like, dude, if you don't do it, she doesn't get the life. So let's go.
Right. And if you don't do it, who will? No one's going to
Exactly
do
right.
it, right? I
Exactly
mean,
right.
and sometimes, as business owners, it can be hard because we're like, okay, there are moments where you do need to take a pause and be like, all right, I can't do everything though, that I do have to scale, right? So that's a part of the reason why it's so important to have you on here, because there are people probably out there that agree with you. They're hearing you. They're saying, yes, I do need to be waking up at 4 a.m. I need to be doing my thing, but I've hit a point where I don't know if I can go much further or much farther. How do you navigate that? How do you help to look at that situation and be like, okay, well, it doesn't just have to be you, only you, like this can grow in another way.
So the first thing that I would challenge them to do is to ask themselves, have they built a business or a crappy job for themselves? What I found for me early on, I wasn't really building a business, even though I told everybody I was building a business.
Yeah.
What I did is basically recreated what I did working for other people. I was doing everything. And when you're the only person that can do it, or the only person available to do it, you're most likely going to have a job versus a business. So you got to figure out what you can get off your plate and bring other people in to help you. And those first years of businesses, you're not making a whole lot of money.
Right.
So people are like, but how the heck do I outsource if I have no money to outsource with? And I'll tell everybody, barter. Everybody has something that somebody else needs. And my first year, dude, I bartered with so many people. I'll teach you how to sell. You do this for me. I'll teach you how to sell. You do this, right? So whatever your skill sets are, somebody else needs it. And use that to your advantage to get somebody who's good enough. I mean, the people that'll barter with you typically, they're early stages of their business too. So they need your help just as much as you need them. So find those people who are early stage and figure out how to partner up, figure out how to work together, and some cool things will happen. And as you start bringing on this people, anything that can free up your time to go sell more is always the answer. Because it's the sales that teach you business. And I've had a couple people say, no, that's not true, but it is true, because here's the thing. If you go out and you have enough sales conversations, you'll figure out actually what your business is once you start selling things.
Because
And
you're talking through it and you're like seeing how
100%.
people receive that information, or what clicks for them or what doesn't resonate with them, right? So for
Absolutely.
me, yeah, for me, I'm seeing that too. It's like maybe I try to talk about this service or offering and it just goes right over their head, but you talk about something else and they're like, "Ooh, I want to learn more." So then you're like, "Okay, mental note, we need to be doing more of this for this much," right?
Absolutely. And a lot of this is things I had to do for myself, because that first year I didn't know what the heck I was selling. I was just going through trying to sell anything, finding myself. And as I would have these conversations, people would lean in on certain key things. I'm like, oh, maybe that's the path, or maybe that's the path. And I chased the revenue for the longest time. And in
Yes.
chasing the revenue, I finally found some things that would work, and we doubled down on the things that worked, and kept doing that over and over again.
So for those that are in that early stage of listening and being like, "Yep, I'm that 1 year, that first year of being like, I'm selling you a shoe and hopes and dreams. Will you buy it, Sonny?" They're kind of feeling like that. What are some tips for them to become more of an effective salesperson?
Realize that sales is nothing more than a conversation. And what happens to people is they try not to be a salesperson, and then trying not to be a salesperson, they become a salesperson. They do all the things that they wish somebody wouldn't do to them. So I would tell people to think about, how would somebody effectively offer them their services, right? So how would I sell you your services? Or the way I looked at it for me is, I had to go through my own head as, okay, how would somebody sell this to me?
Mm.
How would somebody show up and ask me if I was interested in the services? And that dynamic changed my entire outlook on how I was presenting this to people, because I realized the tactics I had been trying, I'd never respond to.
Can you
So,
give me an example of that, of one of
so
those tactics?
Well, yeah. So I started off saying, hey, would you be interested in coaching services? Would you be interested in sales training? And nobody wants to say yes to that, right? Because now they know it's a sales call. So I would always start off, and we'll just go to LinkedIn and use that as a reference.
Right.
I reach out. I don't put anything in a connection request. I don't put any messages, any notes, anything. I just connect. When somebody connects back with me, my first maneuver is to ask a question. I'm like, hey, thanks for accepting the connection. How did you get into what you do?
You ask them something about them first, like
Yep,
before even talking about a product or a service or anything, like just a bid for connection, authentic
100%.
connection.
Yep, yep. And they'll always come back, and I get some funny response. Like one that I just got said, well, I just got lucky. And I'm like, so now I want to go back. My next response is, okay, tell me how you got lucky, because now I'm really fascinated. So you get some really, really, hey, Izzy, you get some really, really, really cool responses from that. And they'll usually, at the end of that, if they're open to networking and fun conversations, they'll say, well, what about you? How'd you get into what you do?
Right.
And I created a canned cut and paste script that I have that says, well, I, made a lot of people money and launched a business, screwed it all up, almost lost everything, found podcasting, turned the business around. Now I run these companies. I have a full working farm and I put the goats and chickens and ducks in there because I want to stay as human as possible.
Are the goats on LinkedIn too? You got them working away, sales
Every chance.
requests?
Absolutely. They're doing all my reach outs for me.
That's
So,
great.
and, for me, I just want to keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
And what I found is a lot of times people go, wow, that's a really, really cool story. And oftentimes they're asking me, do you want to jump on a Zoom? I'd love to learn more. And if they don't, and we keep the conversation going, I say, you know what, this has been a fun chat here on LinkedIn. If you're up for it, let's jump on a Zoom. I'd love to find out more about your world. And at no point have I said, would you like to talk about my services? Would you be interested in XYZ? I'm nurturing a conversation along, and more often than not, they're like, yeah, let's jump on a Zoom. That'd be a lot of damn fun.
Yeah.
And then everything happens in the Zoom. And once you get into this, and if you want to see my process, send me a connection request. I do it pretty much the same way every time. But as you build these relationships, what I found is go into those Zoom calls and come in from the perspective that you're not going to sell a thing, but you're going to teach them something. And so every Zoom call for me, I'm always going to start it off with, hey, why don't we do this? I've got no agenda. You tell me your story, I'll tell you mine. We'll see what turns up. And I always make them go first because I'm fascinated and I really want to hear their story and understand their world. And then, those usually it's a phenomenal story of somehow doing what they're doing. And then I'll go and and I have a very specific story I go through that tells basically how I introduce myself on the show. And then I'll say, one of my favorite things in the world is helping people build the business freedom. If you'll give me a few seconds, tell me about your business and I'll see if I can help you out. And then I'll spend the rest of that call diving into their business and seeing if I can help them. And in working with them through their business, trying to help them get better and figure out things and ideas, oftentimes at the end of the call, they're like, oh my God, Donnie, this has been awesome. How do we do more of this? And I'll say, well, my
Mm.
intent was not to turn this into a sales call, but since you ask, is it okay if I tell you a little bit about my services and what I do? But I never have make that move unless they ask me how we do something further.
See, something I'm noticing, Donnie, is the people that I've been speaking to as I've been podcasting or just networking that have found the most success are the ones that tell me that they're not here to make money. They're a vessel for serving. They're a vessel for service. They're trying to help. That mindset, what do you think it is about that mindset that just transforms the way we think and do business?
It removes desperation, and it allows you to stay human. I mean,
Mm,
I think it's truly our nature to serve in some form of aspect of life. And there's takers and there's people that are givers and that want to help people. And at the end of the day, good people will always win.
that's so
And
true.
everybody thinks that it's bad people that win things and everything else, but just look at history long enough and you'll figure it out. And everybody says the nice guy finishes last. No, the nice guy finishes with the most. And I think that's just a good way to always look at everything.
I agree because something I was thinking this the other day. I was thinking that there are a lot of people that step on others while they're trying to climb their way to the top. Right? They'll do whatever it takes. They got that very negative hustle energy. But I think there's a way to hustle and still help people along the way, so that you build a ladder of relationships, so that maybe one day down the line you're trying to get to that next rung and you can't get there. Somebody that you helped when you were way down there is the one that's going to lift you up to get you to the top when you're at
I
that
agree.
place.
I agree. It's every day, no matter what you do, you get to go to bed with you and your thoughts. And the day that I had to tell my wife we were about to lose the farm and everything we own, that was a really, really rough day for me. And I did a really interesting thing that I've never done before. I went upstairs to my, upstairs bathroom, and I looked at the mirror, and I tried to say the word "I love you," and that just felt really weird, right? That just was
Oh,
awkward as hell. So I changed it to the words "I'm proud of you." And as soon as I said "I'm proud of you," this whole voice went off in the back of my head and said, "Yeah, not really." And I'm like, why not? And I realized at that point, I wasn't holding up my end of the bargain for my wife, right? I wasn't holding up my side of the marriage.
right.
And so I had to go figure this out so I could. So I started a daily practice of going to the mirror and saying, I'm proud of you. And it's interesting that every time you do that, something likely is going to pop up. There's gonna be like
Yes.
this but that happens. I'm proud of you, but you know, and every time that but pops up or something negative pops up, and after you say I'm proud of you, that's the thing you got to go fix or do. So as I did that every day, I said, I'm proud of you. It was, yeah, but you're not doing the reach outs, man. So I had to go start doing the reach outs. I'm proud of you, but you're not doing cold calls. All right, gotta go do cold calls. I'm proud of you, but I'm not delivering here. I'm not doing this. And every time something popped up, I had to go do the thing. And then at one point, when the business development stuff started working, I literally, went to the mirror and I said, I'm proud of you. And what popped up in my head is like, yeah, but you're not spending time with Elizabeth. And I'm like, crap, now I got to go work on, the marriage again.
See, that's so important though, because that's how you can assess whether the balance of what you're doing is what you want. Because when you only focus on the revenue aspect of your business and selling in the way to meet numbers, meet quotas, you're not really fulfilling the other parts of yourself to make your business have that longevity and fulfillment for yourself that it could have. There's other factors to of course, make the
Absolutely.
money, pay the bills, but like, how do you want your life to look so that this can be something that can live past you? It can grow. It doesn't just stick with you and suckle your whole life away. Like, I know it's excessive in that explanation, but it's true. And how you listen to yourself, how you think, the things you tell yourself affect your performance, and that's part of being a good salesperson. It's your confidence and your ability to communicate and believe in yourself, right?
Absolutely. That's why, people have got to do things they can get really passionate about. I don't say take your passion and turn that into a business. I think that might be dangerous,
Mm,
but you need to be in a business that you actually are extremely passionate about or you become extremely passionate about. And, I don't believe in work life balance. I believe in work life integration, and there's a massive difference. I think people that are looking for balance typically don't like what they're actually doing. So they're looking for a separation of getting away from what they're doing. But when you really love what you do, and by the way, the person who said, do what you love, never work a day in your life, I just want to punch that dude in the face.
me too. Let's go find him in an alley, Donnie. Let's
Right?
go.
We're just going to take him out. Because it's just not true, man. I love what I do and I work my damn butt off.
Right? It's
You
hard
know,
work.
it is. Absolutely it is. So, but the idea of work life integration is don't separate it out, put it all together because what happens is you're going to be spending time with your kids, your family, vacations. Dude, this business is your damn livelihood. Of course you're going to be thinking about it. And when you're going for this work life balance, people are like beating themselves up because now they're not spending enough time with the family, this, that, and the other. If you bring the family into the business, now I talk to my wife all the time about business. We don't have kids, right? Other than the baby goats.
Yeah.
I talk to my wife all the time about business, and she's gracious enough to entertain me as I talk about business.
Right.
She doesn't want anything to do with the business, doesn't, I mean, she hopes I'm successful, but doesn't care about all the things. But it becomes such a big part of our family, of our life. Of course, we're going to talk about it. And people try to avoid that. They don't bring their family into it. And when you have that separation, you'll end up putting yourself on an island. And that being on an island as a business owner, not reaching out and collaborating and talking with other people is a very dangerous game to play because you're going to lose because you're not getting any input from others that could be the thing you need to grow your business. So don't look for balance. Look for, this integration. How can I bring it all together? And what you'll find is the more you do that, the more you'll continue to show up as yourself because you no longer have to be a split personality like you were when you worked for other people. Because when you work for other people, there's the work version of you, then there's a home version of you. As a business owner, entrepreneur, that needs to be absolutely one person.
That's very fascinating. I think a couple things I'm hearing on, ways to integrate your life better so that you can sell better and grow. One is, you know, finding ways to make it feel like you have the passion to do it, but it doesn't have to be that number one thing that you love. It has to give you enough gusto to actually want to wake up earlier or do the work, but it doesn't have to be, the thing that makes you feel like I'm not working at all. Because let's face it, work is still work. And then
Yep.
the other thing is doing the self work, the mindset, the understanding how do I convey what I'm feeling, but how do I also believe in myself so that when I tell you what I'm doing, you believe it too and you
Well
feel
said.
served and believed by it.
Yeah, well said.
And thank you. And then, those are just very like low level, or well, high level rather, the ideas. But more tactically, what's a very obvious mistake that people that are trying to sell, they're starting to sell, that they make, that you often see?
Well, I don't think anybody actually has a sales problem. And let me explain. So, sales, truthfully, in my mind, is that final conversation where you get to a yes or no, we're going to do business together, right? And most people, if they get into a good conversation with great people, good things happen, and a lot of time that turns into a client, right? People are usually good at that kind of conversation. Where everybody screws up is getting to that conversation, because that's where the real work happens. So people biggest mistake is they tend to pick one lane, one avenue, and that's the only way they're going to try and find clients. Like there's certain people that say, I'm only going to do LinkedIn. That's all I'm going to do. Right. There's certain people that say, I'm only going to network. That's all I'm going to do is just network. And that's literally the epitome of putting all your eggs in one basket. You know,
And as a
there's people,
farmer, you'd know. Yeah,
right,
just
right.
kidding.
Exactly right. So I tell everybody that you don't have a sales problem, you actually have a business development problem. And business development is all those things that actually get you to that final sales conversation. So there's three major forms of business development. There's warm conversations, there's cold outreach, and then there's what we call hand raising activities. Warm conversations, it's basically networking. It's anywhere you can get face to face, Zoom to Zoom, belly to belly with anybody that is expecting a business conversation. And so you think you go to a conference, trade show, you do, after hours events, morning events, you do actual networking groups, whatever can get you face to face, belly to belly. The cold outreach is exactly what it sounds like. It's a cold calling, it's a cold connecting on LinkedIn, it's a door to door sales. It's anywhere where you go from these people have no damn clue who I want to, ooh, I'm interested about talking further about business. The third is the hand raising, and hand raising is wherever you can put out original thought and people can raise their hand and say, I'm interested in that. So that's things like guesting on podcasts, that's speaking on stages, putting out social content, writing blog posts, commenting on other people's, social content. It's anywhere where you can put out your own original thought. It has to be original thought because people can tell when you're borrowing somebody else's stuff, right? So it's your own original thought and people can raise their hand. You have to have at all times at least one in each one of those categories going at all times. You got to be doing some form of warm conversation networking, some form of cold outreach, whether it's connecting on LinkedIn, where most people should probably play. It should be cold calling, right? And you've got to be doing something where you're putting out that original thought, doing those hand raising activities, and putting stuff out there. So if you don't have that mix, or you're doing one way heavier than the rest, you're going to get yourself in trouble because you won't get into enough of those sales conversations to figure out actually how to build your business.
Yeah, and then even past that, once you are established and you're trying to grow, you might find that the market changes and the
Mm,
place that where you used to be able to get leads, that market no longer resonates or lives there anymore, right? So
absolutely.
I was talking to a friend the other day. She has a dance studio, and she was telling me that she wanted to get more, people to come by, pay for tickets. She's doing these events, and she noticed that she wasn't getting as many people as she used to. And I asked her, like, where are you posting? Do you have ads or whatever online? And she's like, well, for like 5 years now, I've just been using Facebook, and that's it, and it's been doing really well for me. And I'm like, you don't have an Instagram? And she's like, no, I don't really have an Instagram. I'm like, well, the younger crowds now for your target audience, for your business, singles that want to go out dancing and learn Latin dancing or whatever, they're probably not on Facebook anymore.
Right.
But when you're in the business, sometimes when you're working in your business, you don't have that time, that foresight to give yourself that perspective of working on your business, because you're just trying to do what you need to do on a day to day, right? So
Absolutely.
how do you give yourself that separation or that time to give your perspective aligned and your goals right for your target and in your sales goals, I guess?
Well, and this is what I love say about sales in general
Hmm.
is, and I tell people sales will teach you what your business is, because as your business grows, your clientele is going to evolve, because you're going to end up getting bigger clients and bigger deals, bigger conversations. And when you're in a lot of different sales conversations, you're going to learn, the different aspects of your business. But for me, the biggest thing that I would tell people is business development has to come before everything else. So what I would, if I was sitting across from somebody and coaching them, I would tell them to draw a cross on a sheet of paper. On that cross, on the top left side, I would tell them to write the word revenue. On the top right side, I would write the word no revenue, no revenue or non-revenue, right? And then I would tell them all the activities that are in those three business development activities, the warm conversations, the cold outreach, and the hand raising activities. Those are your revenue producing activities. Everything else goes in the non revenue column. Okay.
Okay.
Then I would ask them what hours of the day could they get face to face with their clients. So what hours do their clients work? And it's like going to be like a 7 to 4, an 8 to 5, something like that. Whatever those hours are, those now become your revenue hours. And early in the business, the only activities that happen during revenue hours, that 7 to 4, 8 to 5 hours, is business development activities. And then everything else gets done outside of those hours. Now, I'm okay if somebody does revenue hours from like 7 to noon, and then operation stuff, 1 to 4, whatever your hours are. But early in the business, there's so much work that has to go into business development that you have to get into these conversations. And if you set these hours, then you've got to treat it like $1 million appointment. And I tell everybody that if you had an appointment coming up that could potentially be $1 million of revenue for you, there ain't nothing in hell going to allow you to miss that meeting shy of somebody on their deathbed, right?
Yes. Yes.
So if you have these revenue hours set as a staple in your business, that means no putting out fires, no anything. You do the business development activities. If
Yes.
you don't do that, you'll end up creating a job for yourself, because you'll spend more time delivering crap, creating stuff, versus going out and meeting new people.
I wonder what this sounds like for me. I don't know. Maybe I should come back and listen to this 10 times. It's fine. No, but it's so true though, because I think um, we only go off of what we know, right? So
Yep.
if we've only had jobs our whole life, we think that's what work is supposed to be. So
Yep.
you subconsciously shape your work to emulate that. But for you, during your golden revenue hours, I'm loving this revenue hours and your outreach. What are some things that you've done during that time on LinkedIn? In addition to what you mentioned earlier, that's also been really helpful for your
Yeah.
business.
So, I'm very, very, very regimented in my routine.
Mm.
So, um, I'll walk you through what my morning looks like. And I've never read the book Miracle Morning, so this is not that, but I'm assuming there's some similarities with it. But I get up 4 o'clock, I go walk the farm. I spend 45 minutes walking the farm. listening to podcasts. It's completely pitch dark, so it allows me to stay really, really focused. I'm 45. I got a diagnosed with ADHD this year, so it really explains why I've got to do something to distract me to learn.
Mm.
So listening to podcasts is a really good way for me to focus on things. So I'll do that. Then I'll go take care of the farm. I make my wife's lunch and send her off for the day. And then I sit down and I get on LinkedIn and I start writing. And as I start writing, I'll write a minimum of 200 words every day. It's not, sometimes it's kind of like a journal, but a lot of times it's me just getting my thoughts out of my head. Because I get some sort of aha on the podcast, some sort of, idea somewhere. And
You
that,
like start with that inspiration so you're not like trying to create from like a dry,
absolutely.
cup, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't want to regurgitate what I heard. So what I'll often do in that writing is my first sentence is like that thing that my aha, and then I'll spend the rest of the time trying to understand what I believe about that aha.
Yes.
And that becomes, my writing. I'll do that, and then in a private community I have, because of a challenge we have going on, I'll put those words in my private community, and then I'll go over to LinkedIn, and then I'll put a post out that is the end result of those thoughts, and then I'll write a long form post out every day. Now, sometimes I may do a meme or a graphic or something, but
Yeah.
most part, I'll do a long form post out on LinkedIn, and that's usually out by 6 o'clock in the morning, just because it's part of my routine. And as soon as I post that, I will then go around and start commenting, liking, engaging on a bunch of other people's content, because I've just found the more I engage with others, the more people come back and engage with me. And by 6:30, maybe 6:45, I'm pretty much done with my social media engagement and stuff for the day.
Wow.
So I will then, by 7, I can, get ready for the day. And by 7:30, sometimes, 7, just depending on, what's going on that day, I'm in this chair and running and gunning. And this is what allows me to do the 25 to 35 Zoom calls I do a week. And this allows me to run all the groups we run. This allows me to do all the business meetings. And it also allows me to get out of this chair by 6 o'clock every evening.
So, you said you didn't read the book Miracle Mornings. For me, it's a miracle if I get up in the morning. And I'm really trying to absorb by osmosis what you're saying. I feel like I need to be one of those kids that get sent to the farm to like learn a thing or two about working hard. Send
Yep.
Rita to the content farm to wake up at 4 a.m. so that she can get her
Well,
life
I
together.
would challenge you then you need to get a lot stronger reason. I was listening to Tom Bilyeu talk, and he's got a podcast called Impact Theory, and he talks about it. Tom will tell you he sucks at getting up in the morning, like
Yeah.
he hates it, and so he's got a whole routine that he goes through. It's really kind of crazy
Yeah.
that he's like, from the moment the alarm goes off, he gives himself 10 minutes, and in that 10 minutes, he can wallow, he can. Oh no, lost you guys. Technical problems. We're still live. I
We're
still
still
see us.
live.
Yeah.
Diane, I know we're gonna we'll be here. If you can hear us, let us know. But we're just gonna keep talking
Yeah.
and hoping for the best.
If not, it'd be a great conversation between you and I.
That's fine.
You know, but what he said is he gave himself 10 minutes. And in that
Yeah.
10 minutes, he's allowed to wallow, allowed to freaking enjoy the warmth. But there's
Mhm.
another alarm at 10 minutes. And what he says is right at that second alarm, he says his reason, his thing.
He
And
says
that
his like affirmation, his
yep,
why.
yep, of why he's doing all this, why, if he stays in bed, he can't do all this. And he instantly just pops. Now, I'm a morning person, so, that didn't resonate with me, but
Yeah.
you might be able to borrow that to get up, but he has to set 2 alarms.
Okay.
One to go off the time he wants to get up, and that second one's that 10, alarm. And he says his reason right as that alarm goes off, and he goes, "Now I wake up before them, both, but I'm still doing my 10 minutes, in between." I thought it was kind of fascinating for
I do
everybody.
find that fascinating for someone, especially like him, because I listen to their stuff too, and he seems like he's got his whole life together. But I guess
Yeah,
we
you
all.
listen to me talk, and he's like, "Oh, I hate sleeping in," and he's like, "I sleep with the covers over my head." I'm like, "I couldn't do that."
I
Uh,
feel like me and Tom, we'd be in our own little like sleep pods. We'd be like, "You good over there? Bye. All right, I'm over
yeah,
here." Yeah,
yeah.
that's awesome. Well, um, Donnie, this has been really a great conversation. I love everything, all the advice you've given us in a short period of time, a lot of tips and coaching and encouragement. And before we wrap up, I'd like to ask you one last question. As you look forward to the next week, as you're growing and doing everything that you're doing with your business, what's one thing that this next coming week that you're really looking forward to?
So, well, talked about my wife a lot this year, but we hit our 16th wedding anniversary on Saturday.
Yay!
So we're going to go hang out with some friends Saturday night, but we're sneaking off to Vegas next weekend. I'm going to do 3 days out in Vegas and party and have a lot of fun, which is nice because, she still runs a massive vet clinic and,
Yes.
I am running all the businesses. So we run and gun, a lot. So we don't spend a whole lot of time together. So I'm really looking forward to that. But also we launched a program. It's a free challenge called Champions 90, and people can go to champions90.com to check it out. And it came from my morning walks. And so Champions 90, there's 5 activities surrounded around business development. So you'll go do a 45-minute walk, you'll listen to a 45 minutes of a podcast, then you go do 30 minutes of cold outreach, 30 minutes of hand raising activities, and then write 200 words. And you do this for 90 days straight without missing a day. And what I've found, and the feedback from the people doing this has been one of the most beautiful things in the world, because they're sending me DMs and messages and the likes about what they're learning and how much their business is growing. Because as we're running businesses, we don't take enough time to pause and, focus on the business itself.
Yes.
So that's what those morning walks have been for me, is the ability to focus on the business. And I can tell you, I've truly been doing this for 60 some odd days now, of doing these morning walks and this routine. But as far as when we launch the challenge, next week, I'll hit my 45th day, actually with the challenge. So I'll be halfway through the Champions 90 challenge. And I can tell you, in that time, I've lost 40 pounds.
And what? You've lost 40 pounds in
40 pounds.
45 days?
Really about 60 days, but
Okay.
all
Yeah.
in. I am fasting with it, so I don't want to say this is
Oh, okay.
not like an exercise or workout routine by any means, but
Writing 200 words on LinkedIn doesn't make you lose a pound a day, Donnie?
absolutely it does. Absolutely it does, right? Maybe if
That's
you eat the
amazing,
paper
though.
and nothing else, right? But
That's hilarious.
and we can look at our business revenue and how much our revenue has grown. I was already pretty disciplined in business development, but I turned my cold outreach to getting on stages and getting on bigger podcasts. So I've gotten a lot more exposure. Like I'm, going down to Atlanta for a week and doing like 7 different speaking engagements coming up.
Wow.
So and I've gotten on some really cool. I just got interviewed on your show, which is amazing. I'm just got interviewed on the top podcast out of Australia this week. It's
Wow.
because I'm proactively putting myself out there to get on these bigger arenas. And as part of my cold outreach, because I'm just a firm believer, if I can't do it, if I'm not going to do it, I can't teach it to somebody else. So I'm out front doing the Champions 90 and documenting the journey along the way. And so I'd encourage anybody that if you're building the business, go to champions90.com. There's no cost. There's no upsell. We're not trying to cram shit down your throat, stuff down your throat. Sorry.
Okay.
And I went on the entire show without freaking cussing, but right then. But there's a whole group of people that are doing this. There's a cool accountability group of people doing the Champions 90. And so it'd be good to have you guys come along for the ride and come play with us.
Well, if you are ready to be challenged to take your business, yourself, and your sales to the next level, definitely check that out. And if you need more coaching, one-on-one help, or want to listen to Donnie's podcast, Donnie, drop us the contact deets.
So the easiest way to find everything we do is just go to DonnieBoivin.com. So DONNIE, B as in boy, OI, B as in Victor, IN. .com, and you can find all my books, the podcast, all my social handles, but it's Donnie Boivin everywhere on social media. But guys, a bigger favor you can do for me You can tell Rita loves this, and she's putting a lot of time, energy, effort in doing this. I've listened to a lot of her shows and things, and she's just an amazing interviewer. Do her a favor. If you've ever gotten any value out of what she does or the guests she brings on, share this stuff out for her. Because having my own show, doing my own things, getting followers, getting more people to lean in, if you can share this out for her, it's like you gave her a virtual hug. So comment on it, share it out, help her grow with her mission of getting these words, these people out there, their stories. Help her. It'll mean the world to her. And that's a big thing you guys can do for me.
Well, I feel like I just got two virtual hugs just now. So thank you, Donnie. I really appreciate that. And
You're
thank
welcome.
you, Diane. Look, Diane hyping us up too. Rita rocks. She also made a mention earlier about how she loved your work life integration comment as well in the conversation. So,
Awesome.
I've really enjoyed talking with you today, Donnie, and I love the work that we do. Hopefully, at least one person listens to this today and feels inspired and ready to change their life and grow their business. So that's it today for LinkedIn Water Cooler Talk. If you've enjoyed this and you would like to hang out with us, check us out. I'm on LinkedIn all the time, so you might see me next Friday with somebody else, but I'm here every day basically. So if you want to learn more about how to improve your podcasting and your interviewing skills, also send me a message. I am working on growing my business, Reignite Media, and where we work with you to help your content dreams come true. So that's it today, and thank you so much, Donnie. I hope you have an awesome day.
You too, babe.